The war began without warning.
One morning, the sky above the mining colony turned red, not from dawn but from fire. Ships fell from the clouds like burning stars. Soldiers ran across the sand, shouting orders no one could follow. In that chaos, a human commander named Eli Voss stood on a ridge, staring at the impossible, an army of alien warriors charging toward them with animal-like speed and sharp cries that echoed through the air. Eli had seen many battles, but this was different. These weren't just soldiers. They looked like something from another world, part human, part beast, yet strangely graceful. Among them was one figure who caught his eye, a young female fighter with fox-like ears and a long red tail. She moved faster than anyone else, her eyes glowing with amber light as she cut through the battlefield. When Eli's squad was surrounded, she appeared, not as an enemy, but as a savior. She leaped between the attackers, her blade spinning like fire. Within moments, the air was still again. The only sound left was her heavy breathing and the distant hum of broken engines. Eli raised his weapon, unsure if she was friend or foe. She looked back at him and said softly, "You're safe now, Master." He froze. No one had ever called him that before. Before he could reply, another explosion threw them both to the ground. The shockwave tore through the camp, sending smoke and dust into the sky. When Eli opened his eyes again, the fox girl was bleeding, lying beside him. He saw fear in her golden eyes, but not for herself. She looked at him as if she had failed to protect him. "Stay still," he said, pressing his hand to her wound. "You saved me." "Don't move," she smiled faintly. "It's nothing, Master," he frowned. "Don't call me that." But she only closed her eyes and whispered, "It's what I was made to call you." Moments later, human soldiers arrived, and what they saw shocked them. A human commander helping an alien? They shouted, aimed their guns, and pulled her away. Eli tried to explain, but no one listened. "She's not one of us," a soldier yelled. "She's one of them." "No," Eli shouted back. "She fought for us." They didn't care. They dragged the fox girl to a transport cage, her wrists bound, tail twitching weakly. Eli followed, his anger growing as he watched how they treated her, like she was an animal. When they reached the base, the commander of the human forces, Colonel Reeves, met him. Reeves was a tall man with sharp eyes and no patience for weakness. "You brought one of them into our camp?" Reeves said coldly. "She saved my life," Eli replied. "She's intelligent. She speaks our language." Reeves looked at the fox girl through the bars. "So it talks," he muttered. "That doesn't make it human." Eli clenched his fists. "Her name's Kaera." Reeves ignored him. "We'll study it. Maybe learn something useful." "It's not an it," Eli said. "She's alive. She has feelings." The colonel turned away. "You're too soft, Voss. Remember who you are, and a soldier, not a keeper of pets." That night, Eli couldn't sleep. He walked quietly to the holding area. Kaera was sitting inside the cage, staring at the stars through the metal bars. When she saw him, she smiled again, faint but warm. "You came back, Master." "Stop calling me that," he said gently. "My name's Eli." She tilted her head. "Eli," she repeated, like tasting the word. "Pretty name." He smiled despite himself. "Why did you help us? Why save me?" Kaera looked down. "Because you're different. You didn't kill us when you had the chance." Eli frowned. "Us? There were more like me," she said softly. "But humans took them. Some for war, some for worse. They say we are not human enough to love. That's why I ran." Eli felt something heavy in his chest. "And now they think you're an enemy." She nodded. "I'm used to it." He stepped closer. "You don't deserve this." Before he could say more, a voice called from behind one of the guards. "Commander, you shouldn't be here." Eli turned, but when he looked back at Kaera, she whispered something that stayed in his mind forever. "Even if they hate me, I'll still protect you, Master." The guard pulled him away, and the door shut between them with a loud metallic echo. As Eli walked back to his quarters, he looked at the horizon glowing with fire. The war was far from over, but something had already changed inside him. For the first time in his life, he wasn't sure who the real enemy was. The next morning, the camp was quiet, but the silence felt heavy. The sun rose over the desert base, casting long shadows across rows of metal tents and grounded ships. Soldiers moved around like ghosts, cleaning weapons and whispering rumors. Everyone was talking about the same thing: the fox girl in the cage. Eli Voss sat alone outside the command tent, his mind restless. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Kaera's face, her soft smile, her golden eyes full of sadness. She had saved his life, yet now she was locked like an animal. When he entered the briefing room, Colonel Reeves was already there with several scientists. On the screen behind them, a hologram showed Kaera's body scan, bones, heart rate, and strange energy patterns running through her veins. "She's a hybrid," said the head scientist. "Not fully human. Some unknown DNA mixed in, possibly engineered for combat." Eli clenched his jaw. "She's not a weapon." Reeves looked at him coldly. "Everything can be a weapon, Voss, especially something that strong." "She's alive," Eli said. "She thinks. She feels. She deserves respect," Reeves smirked. "You sound like you've forgotten the war. Her kind burned our colonies. She's not one of them anymore. Doesn't matter. Orders are clear. Test her, then send her to the central labs." Eli's stomach tightened. The central labs were known for one thing: experiments that no one survived. He left the room before he said something he'd regret. The guards at Kaera's cage stood at attention when he approached. "Open it," he ordered. "Sir, Colonel's orders." "That's an order from me," Eli said sharply. His voice carried the tone of a commander who had seen too many deaths. The guard hesitated but stepped aside. Eli crouched near the cage. "Kaera, can you hear me?" She lifted her head slowly. Her face looked pale, her wrists bruised from the metal cuffs. Still, she smiled. "I knew you'd come, Master," he sighed. "Please, just call me Eli, Eli," she repeated softly, her voice trembling. "They said they will take me away." "They won't," he said firmly. "I'll stop them," she tilted her head. "You can't fight your own people." "Then I'll protect you in secret," he whispered. "I'll find a way." Kaera's tail moved slightly, a flicker of hope. "You risk too much." Eli looked straight into her eyes. "You risked your life for me first." Suddenly, an alarm blared through the camp. Red lights flashed across the tents. A soldier ran past shouting, "Incoming attack! Enemy scouts approaching from the west." Eli turned to the guards. "Get the men ready." But when he looked back, Kaera was already standing, her ears twitching. "Let me fight," she said. "I can help." "You're injured." "I can still fight," she said, her voice steady. "If they attack this base, they'll kill everyone, even you." He hesitated only a moment, then unlocked the cage. "Don't make me regret this." Kaera stepped out, stretching her arms. The soldiers nearby stared, shocked as she moved with grace and speed. When the first blast hit the outer wall, she was already running toward it. Eli followed her outside. The desert once again turned into fire and dust. Alien drones swooped down, firing beams of red light. Soldiers shouted and scattered for cover. Kaera leaped onto a rock, her claws glowing faintly blue. She struck a drone mid-air, tearing it apart with a single motion. The explosion threw sand everywhere, lighting her hair like flame. "She's fighting for us," one soldier yelled in disbelief. Eli smiled grimly. "Told you." But as the battle raged, Colonel Reeves appeared beside him, shouting over the noise. "What have you done, Voss?" "You unleashed the creature. She's saving your men. She's a liability." Reeves drew his pistol, aiming at her. "If she turns on us, Eli grabbed his arm. "Don't you dare." At that moment, Kaera destroyed the last drone. The air grew still again. She stood in the middle of the sandstorm, breathing hard, blood and smoke on her armor. Reeves lowered his gun slowly. "Maybe she's useful after all," he muttered. Kaera turned toward them, her ears down, her voice faint. "Do you trust me now?" Eli nodded. "I always did." Reeves looked between them, his eyes full of suspicion. "Fine, she stays. But she follows my orders now." Kaera glanced at Eli, unsure, almost afraid, but he gave a small nod. "Do what he says for now." That night, after the fires were put out and the wounded were treated, Kaera sat by the edge of the camp, staring at the stars again. Eli joined her silently. "They don't trust me," she said quietly. "They don't understand you," he replied. She looked at him. "Do you?" He smiled. "I'm trying to." For a moment there was peace. Soft wind, silver moonlight, the sound of distant machines cooling down. But deep inside, Eli knew the worst was yet to come. Because now Kaera wasn't just a captive. She was part of his unit, and everyone was watching to see if she would betray him. Days passed after the attack. The camp was quiet again, but something had changed. Everywhere Kaera went, soldiers stared. Some whispered, Some avoided her. A few even reached for their guns when she passed by. Eli saw it all. He tried to talk to them, tried to explain that she had saved lives. But fear spreads faster than truth. One morning during a patrol, Eli found Kaera alone near the supply tents cleaning her blade. Her ears twitched as he approached. She could always hear him before he spoke. "You haven't eaten," he said softly. She looked up and smiled faintly. "They don't give me food anymore. They say I can hunt." "Hunt?" Eli frowned. "This isn't a jungle, Kaera." "I know," she whispered, "but they want me to act like what they think I am." Her words hit him hard. He knelt beside her. "You don't have to prove anything to them. You already did." She looked at him, her eyes soft but tired. Humans fear what they don't understand. Before Eli could reply, the ground trembled. A rumble spread through the sand. Not an explosion, but movement. He turned toward the horizon and saw dark shapes rising from the dunes. "Scouts!" "Alarm!" he shouted, but it was too late. Dozens of alien figures burst from the sand, their armor black and shining like glass. They surrounded the camp with precision. This wasn't a raid, it was a capture. Kaera stood instantly, her tail straight, her eyes glowing. "They're not my kind," she said. "They're hunters. They take anything that looks like me." Eli drew his rifle. "Then we fight." The air filled with blasts and screams. Soldiers ran for cover. Kaera moved like lightning, her claws cutting through the attackers. Eli fought beside her, each covering the other's blind spot. But suddenly, one of the aliens threw a small metal sphere toward Kaera. It exploded in blue light, sending electric waves through her body. She screamed and fell to the ground. "Kaera!" Eli ran to her, shooting at the attackers. The same alien who had thrown the sphere stepped forward, holding a strange device. "She belongs to us," the alien hissed. "You humans made her and we came to reclaim her." Eli froze. "What did you say?" The alien grinned. "You don't know, do you? The Fox girls were created in your labs, weapons-wearing faces." Eli fired in rage, killing the alien instantly. The rest scattered into the desert, leaving behind only dust and echoes. When the silence returned, Eli knelt beside Kaera. She was shaking, her skin glowing faintly from the shock. He lifted her gently, holding her close. "You're safe now. You're safe." Her voice was weak. "Mastering, is it true? Did humans make us?" Eli didn't answer. He didn't want to believe it. But the words of the alien kept ringing in his mind. "You humans made her." Back at the camp, Colonel Reeves confronted him again. "You brought her out again. Now the enemy knows where we are." "They were after her, not us," Eli shouted. "Exactly," Reeves said. "Because she's one of their weapons and we're ours." Eli's eyes darkened. "She's not a weapon. She's a person." Reeves leaned closer. "If she's really one of ours, she belongs to the program. To the labs. And if she's theirs, she's a spy. Either way, she doesn't belong to you." Eli took a step forward. "She belongs to no one," Reeves sighed. "I'll be contacting Central Command. They'll decide what happens to her." That night, Kaera sat in her tent, silent. Her ears drooped and her tail barely moved. Eli entered quietly, carrying a blanket. "They say I was made," she whispered before he spoke. "Do you believe that?" He paused. "I don't know. But I know what I see." "And what do you see?" He smiled sadly. "Someone brave. Someone who feels more human than most of the people here." Kaera looked at him for a long moment, then asked softly, "Why do you care for me so much?" He hesitated. "Because you remind me that kindness still matters. Even in war," she smiled faintly. "Then I'll fight for that kindness, Eli." Outside, a storm began to rise. The sand blew against the metal walls like rain. In the command tent, Colonel Reeves was already sending a message to the higher command, and his words were cold. Subject Kaera, Fox-type hybrid, recovered alive. Requesting transfer to Central Research Facility. The next morning, Eli was told that she would be moved by force within 48 hours. He didn't say a word. But as he watched the soldiers prepare her transport cage again, something changed in his eyes. He had obeyed orders all his life. But this time, he was planning to break them. The night before Kaera's transfer, the camp felt colder than usual. The wind carried sand across the empty desert, whispering against the metal walls like quiet voices. Inside his tent, Eli couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Kaera's face, scared, silent, and waiting to be taken away. He stared at the small communicator on his table. It was flashing with new orders, Transfer subject to Central Lab, Priority Alpha. He clenched his fists. Not happening, he whispered. Eli knew what the Central Labs did to hybrids. They were experiments, cut apart, studied, erased. The thought made his chest tighten. Kaera wasn't a weapon, she was a life. Outside, the guards were changing shifts. 2 stood near Kaera's cage, their rifles ready. Inside, she sat quietly, her tail curled around her knees. Her golden eyes glowed softly in the dark, reflecting the moonlight. When she heard footsteps, her ears twitched. Eli appeared from the shadows, wearing his field jacket and carrying a small pack. She rose instantly. Eli, what are you doing? Getting you out, he said simply, her eyes widened. They'll kill you. They'll try, he said with a small grin. Come on. He pulled a small device from his pocket, a code breaker stolen from the tech division. With a soft beep, the cage door unlocked. Kaera stepped out, her movements light and silent. Stay close, he whispered. They moved through the shadows between tents, avoiding patrol lights. Every sound, every footstep felt louder than thunder. Eli's heart pounded. One wrong move and they'd both be dead. They reached the outer fence. Beyond it stretched endless sand and the distant outline of an old transport station. If they could reach it, they might find a ship. But before they could cut the fence, a voice shouted behind them. Stop right there. The guards had spotted them. Red alarms blared through the camp. Searchlights flashed across the sand. Kaera grabbed Eli's arm. Run! They sprinted toward the dunes, bullets hitting the sand around them. Eli fired back, covering her as they climbed. She moved fast, almost too fast for the eye to follow, pulling him forward when he stumbled. Finally, they reached the ridge. Below them lay the wreckage of an old supply shuttle half buried in sand. In there, Eli said. They slid inside the broken hull just as more shots cracked in the air. Kaera turned and raised her hands. A faint blue glow spread from her palms. The same strange energy Eli had seen before. The sand around them lifted like a shield, deflecting the bullets. Then silence. Eli stared at her, breathing hard. How did you... I don't know, she said, shaking. It happens when I'm afraid. Eli touched her shoulder. You saved us again, she smiled weakly. That's what partners do. Hours passed. The alarms faded in the distance. Inside the shuttle, they sat by the dim light of Eli's wrist lamp. The wind outside howled softly. Kaera leaned her head against the wall. They'll hunt us now, she said. I know, Eli said. But I'll keep you safe. Why? She asked quietly. I'm not even human. He looked at her for a long moment. You are to me. Kaera's eyes filled with tears she didn't understand. No one had ever said that to her. Not once. Outside, dawn began to break. The desert turned gold again, as if the world didn't care about the war. Back at the camp, Colonel Reeves was furious. He betrayed us for an experiment. He shouted, Send out every scout. Find them before nightfall. But deep inside, part of him hesitated. Something about the girl's eyes, the way she looked at Voss. It didn't seem like the eyes of a monster. Still, orders were orders. By midday, drones were already scanning the desert. Eli and Kaera could hear their engines far above. We can't stay here, Eli said. There's an old communication tower north of here. Maybe we can send a message for help. Kaera nodded. Then let's move. They walked under the burning sun. 2 silhouettes crossing the endless dunes. A human and a fox girl who was never meant to exist. As they reached the top of a ridge, Kaera stopped. Her ears twitched again. What is it? Eli asked. She pointed at the sky. Dozens of lights moved fast, heading straight toward them. Drones? He said. She shook her head. No, something bigger. The next moment, the ground shook violently. From the horizon, a massive alien warship rose above the dunes, its black metal shining like glass. Kaera's voice trembled. They found us. And they're not human. Eli raised his weapon, his heart racing. Then we fight together. She smiled faintly. Always, Master. The desert wind blew between them, hot and dry, carrying the sound of engines and destiny. The desert shook under the sound of engines. The sky turned dark as the alien warship moved above them like a floating mountain. Its shadow covered the dunes and the air began to vibrate. Eli raised his rifle, but it felt useless. The ship was too big, too powerful. A voice echoed through the air, deep, mechanical, and cold. Return the subject to us, human. She's not yours. Kaera stood still beside him, her golden eyes glowing faintly. Her tail dropped low, fear mixing with confusion. They're the ones who made me. she whispered. Eli looked at her. Then we ended here. A bright beam shot down from the ship, hitting the sand in front of them. The ground exploded, throwing dust and heat into the air. Eli grabbed Kaera's hand. Move! They ran down the dunes, trying to reach the old communication tower. Behind them, small drones flew out from the ship, spinning like insects, firing bolts of red energy. Kaera turned and slashed at one drone with her claws, destroying it in a flash of sparks. Another came from above, and she jumped high, spinning midair, tearing it apart. Eli watched her, amazed. She moved faster than any soldier, stronger than any weapon, but for every drone she destroyed, 2 more appeared. Eli, she shouted. I can't stop them all. He fired his rifle, hitting one, then another, but they just kept coming. The air was filled with noise, light, and smoke. Then one beam hit Kaera in the chest. She fell hard into the sand. Kaera! Eli ran to her side. She was breathing but weak, her hands trembling. Blue light flickered around her wounds. The voice came again. Return her to us and we will spare your life. Eli looked up at the ship and shouted, She's not yours. She's not anyone's. He lifted her into his arms and started running again, toward the tall metal tower rising from the dunes. Each step felt heavier than the last. Kaera tried to speak, but her voice was faint. Why do you protect me? She whispered. Because you're more than they say, he said. You're alive. You choose your own way. When they reached the tower, Eli placed her down gently against the wall. He climbed the old ladder to reach the control panel at the top. The system was broken, covered in dust, but he managed to power it up. A small green light blinked. He sent a message to the nearest outpost. This is Commander Eli Voss. Immediate extraction required. Coordinates attached. Priority code Delta. As the signal went out, the tower shook. The warship was descending, lowering closer to the sand. Kaera stood again, her body glowing brighter now. They won't let you go, she said softly. You should leave me. Not happening, Eli said, her eyes softened. Then I must protect you. Before he could stop her, Kaera stepped into the open. Her body began to glow like fire, blue and gold light swirling around her. The air bent and the sand started to rise. From above, the alien voice changed and almost frightened. Deactivate the subject. Do it now. Energy beams rained down, but Kaera lifted her hands. The light around her expanded, forming a glowing shield that blocked every strike. The ground cracked beneath her feet. Her ears flattened as she screamed, not in pain but in power. The shield burst outward, a wave of pure energy that struck the drones and shattered them all at once. The massive ship above trembled, its engines flickering. Inside the ship, alarms blared. The warlord, watching from his command chair, whispered, Impossible. She's awake. Eli watched in awe. Kaera stood glowing in the storm, her tail flowing like fire. But the power was consuming her. She was shaking, her skin marked with light. Kaera! Eli shouted, Stop! You'll burn yourself! She turned to him with tears in her glowing eyes. If I stop, they'll take you. The ship began to break apart. Its engines exploded, sending fragments into the air. The sky filled with falling debris. Eli ran toward her, covering her with his body as the wreckage rained down. When the dust settled, the warship was gone. Only black smoke and broken metal remained. Kaera lay motionless in the sand. Eli held her tightly. Her glow was fading. Hey, he said softly. Stay with me. Her eyes opened slowly, dim but warm. Did I do good? You did more than good, he whispered. You saved us all, she smiled faintly. Then I'm happy. Her head rested against his chest. For a moment he thought she was gone, but then she whispered one last word. Eli. He held her hand. I'm here. Don't let them take me back. Never, he said, his voice breaking. Then her eyes closed and she went still. The wind blew softly over the desert, carrying away the smoke. Eli sat there holding her, until he heard the sound of human ships approaching from the east. Reinforcements. They had received his signal. But as they landed and soldiers surrounded him, Eli knew they didn't come to save her. They came to claim her. A medic knelt beside him. Commander, is that the hybrid? Eli didn't answer. He just stared at the horizon, whispering to himself. She wasn't a hybrid. She was Kaera. The medic hesitated. Sir, what should we do with the body? Eli looked at her peaceful face, her fox ears still shining faintly in the sunlight. Bury her here, he said quietly, where the sky meets the sand. The soldiers exchanged confused looks, but they obeyed. Eli stood alone as they carried her away. The desert wind howled again, but this time it felt empty, like something sacred had been lost. Far above, in the smoke-filled sky, something glowed faintly, a small blue spark, floating where the ship had fallen. And though no one else saw it, Eli smiled, because deep inside he knew she was still out there. Weeks passed since the battle in the desert. The warship's remains were gone, buried under the sand. The camp had moved, but the story of the Foxgirl weapon spread through every soldier. Some said she destroyed the enemy with her own power. Some said she was a ghost. Only one man knew the truth, Eli Voss. He sat alone in a small outpost near the border zone. His uniform was torn, his face rough with dust and sleepless nights. Since that day, he hadn't spoken to anyone. He refused medals, refused reports. They called him a traitor, but he didn't care. Every night, he walked to the edge of the desert, to the place where he buried Kaera. A simple grave made of stones, her name scratched into a piece of metal. He knelt there every evening, silent, watching the sunset paint the dunes gold. "Hey," he would whisper softly. "It's another quiet day, Kaera, you'd like it." He always expected silence. But one night the wind changed. It blew warmer, softer, carrying a faint sound or almost like a voice. "Eli?" He froze. The whisper was gentle, almost lost in the air. He turned, eyes wide. There was nothing, only the desert glowing under the moonlight. He stood for a long time, staring at the horizon. Then with a small smile, he whispered back, "I miss you too." The next morning, the army finally came for him. 2 black ships landed near the outpost. Colonel Reeves stepped out, flanked by guards. His expression was colder than ever. "Commander Voss," Reeves said, "you're under investigation for treason, theft of classified property, and the destruction of a military research subject." Eli didn't move. "She wasn't property," Reeves smirked. "That thing killed hundreds. Do you know how dangerous she was?" "She was alive," Eli said firmly. "And she saved us all." "Enough," Reeves snapped. "You'll come with us. Central Command wants answers." Eli stared at him, then at the desert behind him. "You won't find any answers in a lab." "You'll only make more monsters," Reeves frowned. "Take him." The soldiers stepped forward. Eli didn't resist. As they led him toward the ship, the wind began to rise again, hot and fierce, swirling the sand into the air. One of the guards shouted, "Sir, the sensors are spiking." Before Reeves could respond, the ground trembled. A wave of blue light swept across the dunes. The soldiers stopped, shielding their eyes, and then she appeared, a figure of light standing atop the ridge, glowing softly, shaped like a young girl with fox ears and a flowing tail. Her eyes shone gold just as before. Eli's breath caught. "Kaera," he whispered. Reeves stepped back. "What is that?" The light moved closer. Every grain of sand seemed to float around her as she walked. Her voice echoed in the air, calm and clear. "I told you, I'd protect him." The soldiers froze, unsure if they were seeing a ghost or something divine. Reeves reached for his gun, but it melted in his hand, the metal turning blue and soft. Kaera's glowing eyes met Eli's. "You kept your promise," she said. "You didn't let them take me." Eli took a small step forward. "I thought I lost you," she smiled faintly. "You can't lose what still remembers you." The light around her pulsed gently. "I am not flesh anymore, but I am still here. I can watch, I can listen, and maybe one day I can return." Eli felt tears in his eyes. "You don't have to protect me anymore." She shook her head softly. "That's not why I came. I came to protect hope." The wind grew stronger, her light spreading across the desert. Reeves and the others backed away, shouting, but their voices were lost in the roar of energy. Kaera's gaze stayed fixed on Eli. "Don't let them make more like me. Promise me." "I promise," he said, his voice trembling. She smiled, the same gentle, innocent smile he saw the first day they met. "Then my heart can rest." Her form began to fade, the light scattering like stars. "Goodbye, Eli." "Goodbye, Kaera," he whispered. And just like that, she was gone, her light lifting into the sky, joining the dawn that broke over the horizon. The soldiers fell silent. Reeves looked at Eli, his face pale. "What was that thing?" Eli turned to him, calm now. "Not a thing," he said softly. "She was more human than any of us." He walked past them toward the sunrise, leaving behind the ranks, the guns, the orders. The wind carried away his footprints, but not his promise. Years later, stories spread through the colonies about a lone commander who fought the system, and about a fox girl of light who appeared in battle to shield the weak. Some called her a myth, others prayed to her name. But on quiet nights in the deserts of the outer world, travelers still said they heard her voice in the wind, soft, kind, and loyal. "Eli, Master," I'm still watching. And high above the stars, something glowed faintly blue, the soul of a girl who was never human enough to love, yet loved more deeply than anyone ever could.